Good afternoon and welcome to DGT Live for this very special presentation of our second installment of the Road to Infinity series. This is going to be reviewing all 6 movies, all 6 films in the MCU Phase Two. So that's everything from Iron Man 3 all the way closing out with Ant-Man. And with me to help out with this tall task, I have my co-host, my brother from another mother, writer director of the movie June. He also is the creator of Rad Entertainment, and you can find him every Monday night doing Spoiling Dead. Mr. Tony Walters, thanks for joining me, sir.
Thanks for having me, John. Always a good time.
Awesome. And our very special guest today is the founder of the AtZ Show. Also, let me explain, the host, writer, and creator of all that, Mr. Arturo Zurita. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you guys for having me here. Excited to talk about Marvel and the bazillion movies that they have out every single phase. But it's gonna be exciting.
Absolutely. Awesome. So let's kick this thing off. And, this is going to be a little bit different from normal DGT Live. I'm not, even though, Christian, I love you. I can't be drinking a beer this early in the day. It's 10:30 here. So I will be just sipping on some coffee, a little coffee show for you guys today. Tony, any Pabst this early in the morning? Do you have a problem?
No, I probably shouldn't. I do the show from my job. I own a comic book store, so I probably shouldn't be drinking during the day. Probably not. So, just got some water going today.
All right. Yeah, nice and and this is going to be a nice fresh episode. So we're going to see John not drinking beer. This is going to be strange. So let's start it with Iron Man 3. This one, just have a couple bullet points, and then we'll kind of hear what the panel thought of this. The Phase 1 rather ended with a bang. Avengers, we talked about this on our show for when we reviewed, Phase 1, Tony. It ended with a huge bang, and then so it can only go up from there, right? Well, we got Iron Man 3, directed by Shane Black, starring Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Don Cheadle, Guy Pearce, and Ben Kingsley. Box office on this one was $2 million. It made $1.25 billion, and that owes everything to Avengers. Rotten Tomatoes score 80%, Metacritic 62 out of 100. So Iron Man 3. Let's start with our special guest, Arturo. What did you think? What were your initial thoughts about Iron Man 3?
I know a lot of people came out of it with I don't want to say the twist. I think it's been long enough. I don't want to say what the twist is in case some people haven't seen it.
Oh, this is full spoiler. Full spoiler.
All right, dope. So the whole thing with the Mandarin, I was super excited. I liked the whole inflection that he had in his voice. I was excited to go see the movie, right? And obviously everyone else, since it made a bunch at the box office. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't that connected to that character per se, right? Because I'm more of I'm a DC guy more than anything, right? So when I see like a Lex Luthor interpretation done by Jesse Eisenberg, I'm like, I don't know. I'm a little too used to the more menacing, less crackling type of villain. So I know a lot of people were upset for the Mandarin not being the Mandarin.
Absolutely.
Like they wanted him to be. I wasn't that connected to the Mandarin. So to me, it was like, oh, it's a nice little twist that they put in there. So I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. I haven't seen it since whatever when it came out on Blu-ray. So, but I enjoyed it out of 3. It's my second of the Iron Man movies. So,
okay,
I rank them.
And this was the only one not directed by Jon Favreau. Tony, did you like the direction they took with the Mandarin?
No, I absolutely hated it. And here's why, though. It is because with Avengers, they set up aliens and all this, outworld kind of stuff. And so with Iron Man 3, with them doing the Mandarin, I was like, yay, we got to get these magic rings and have Iron Man fighting someone that isn't just another Iron Man like what we've seen in the first 2 movies. We actually get to see him fight somebody with that uses magic. And I thought that since they introduced aliens in Avengers, that introducing magic into this film wouldn't be a terrible idea. And they could have, introduced one of the Infinity Stones that way too if they wanted to. There was a lot of cool things they could have done. But my favorite moment in the film is also my least favorite moment in the film at the exact same moment, and that's the reveal. The joke of him not just being an actor, hilarious and just really genius writing, but it made me so angry even though I laughed so hard. I thought it was great, but it's typical Shane Black style. The movie itself works as a Shane Black movie, but I don't think it works as like an Iron Man movie, if that makes any sense.
I agree,
because I love Shane Black.
I thought the reveal was great. I actually liked it quite a bit, and I followed Iron Man comics and Mandarin and all that, and the thing is that it just teased the Mandarin's involvement throughout the Iron Man movies, and we just thought that this was going to be the big thing because Iron Man is, for all intents and purposes, the biggest Iron Man villain in his rogues gallery. So when it turned out the way it did, although it was funny and entertaining. And that would have been fine, and I would have given it that. But the true villain was the weakest part of this movie for me.
Guy Pearce.
Horrible. Yeah. I mean, it was like, what was he supposed to be? Iron Fist? There was some things saying he was Fing Fang Foom. It's just like it was so ridiculous how they handled that. And I love Guy Pearce, and I thought he did a horrible job. All right.
Yeah. I have to agree. I also haven't seen this movie since it came out in theaters. So some of the cool moments, I mean, that I can kind of recall, just seeing is it Iron Patriot, right? Like seeing the like that looked cool on screen. Seeing Pepper Potts in the armor at the end, was like kind of cool.
You guys fans of that? This is Iron Man.
Well, she in the comics she becomes, what's her name, Rescue. Like she gets her own Iron Man suit, but she's like an EMT. Like her character is Rescue. So I was like, oh, it's a little nod. Like, I don't know if they'll ever do that, but a little nod to the comic there. So some cool stuff. I liked the end credits scene, or after credits scene with him talking with Bruce Banner, like on the couch. I liked that. I liked the Shane Black aspect of it, like not necessarily being Christmas, I don't think, but it was, him and a little kid walking through the winter and all that, like typical Shane Black stuff.
Yeah, Christmas Story. It had a Christmas Story callback to it. I thought the finale was fun enough. Besides, like, I think leading up to it, when he had all the different Iron Man suits kind of going at it, a lot of people didn't like that. I thought that was kind of cool because we got to see a lot of those suits that we probably wouldn't see. Because you only get, X amount of movies or comic books that go on for years and years, and you got to see all these different kind of suits that he's used throughout the comic. I thought that was kind of cool. I thought Pepper getting the weird, the juice, the
I forgot about that, where she actually gets the stuff. Well, I forgot about that part. Yeah, I was just talking about her being in the suit for a moment. But yeah, when she's getting the weird juice stuff, that was a little weird.
They gave her a lot to do, and I don't know if she deserved that much to do. That character in general in all of these movies, to me, has kind of been one of the weaker characters. And this is kind of jumping into Phase 3 a little bit with Homecoming. But for a while, she was done with the character, right? She walked away from the role, but then she came back. Yeah. She Natalie Portman that shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can get it from like an acting standpoint when her co-host or like, or her other, Robert Downey Jr. is making like millions and millions and millions, and she's, got just as much screen time as him probably in the first film. Like, I can understand being like, hey, give me some more money or I'm done. Like, I can understand that for sure. Like,
and Art, what do you think about this being the highest grossing film of the six?
I think it makes sense because that's why Robert Downey Jr. gets so much money, because Iron Man's usually the draw. I mean, I don't agree with forcing him and everything. I didn't mind him that much in Homecoming, but to like tackle a little bit on Phase 3, that's why they put him in there a bit to like kind of reinforce that movie, even though Spider-Man does not need to be reinforced. So it made sense to me. It being the third, people were hyped up for it. It was coming off of Avengers as well, so I figured that's what it was going to be. Just looking at the other ones, I didn't really see any of the other ones. Even though I don't think it's the best one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other ones having made that much. Even Avengers 2, but Avengers 2 started getting like a lot of, well, I don't know. We'll get to that. I don't want to jump ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, let's move on. I mean, we'll rate kind of stuff or put them in order or whatever towards the end. So I don't think there's much else. Iron Man 3 is definitely not the favorite of anyone. We did a Twitter poll, or I did a Twitter poll last night to kind of have everyone rank their favorite MCU Phase 2 films, and I didn't even really put this. I think Twitter lets you put like 4 things to vote on, so it didn't even make the cut. I said if you want to, put it in the comments that this was your favorite film. and to no surprise, no one did. So moving on to another stinker, Thor, The Dark World, directed by Alan Taylor, starring Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins, Christopher Eccleston, who played Malekith. Box office, it had $170 million budget, made $644 million, 66 on Tomato Meter, 54 out of 100 for the Metacritic score, and that's an average of 44 critics. Let's go, Tony. Thor, The Dark World, Dark Elves. Did you play D&D when you were younger?
I did. I still do from time to time. But Thor: The Dark World, this is the hardest one for me because this is one that I only saw in theaters as well and remember the least amount because it's probably my most hated of Phase 2. I didn't care for it. The only moment that I can remember that was enjoyable was the small cameo from Captain America when Loki kind of turns into Captain America. I thought that was really funny. I thought it's just a weak villain. It introduces one of the Infinity Stones, the Ether, or what, but it didn't make any. I don't know.
The Reality Stone.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, the Reality Stone. So this one, I don't know. I'm not a fan of any of the Thor movies across the board, really, even Ragnarok. So, but Ragnarok, jumping into Phase 3, Ragnarok is the best out of the Thor movies. But yeah, Thor. This is the weakest Thor movie for me. I enjoyed the first one more than this one, and I don't like the first one. So,
we're starting this show off positive.
Yes, yeah. I don't have much to say about this one because I just can barely remember it. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah. Mr. Arturo, how about Thor: The Dark World? Were you a fan of D&D? Let's pose the same question.
It's actually my favorite one out of Phase 2, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely not. No, this is actually the joke movie that I always say. I always what is it, Malekith the Destroyer?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I always say that when I'm comparing villains, right? Whenever there's another villain, everyone's like, "Oh, this is the next best villain." I'm like, he ain't as good as Malekith the Destroyer. They hit me with that Guardians meme. No, I remember watching this movie and I took all my friends to go see it. Half of them literally knocked out, just snoozed. And I was like, that's what this will be remembered for. So, in our circles, anytime we go watch a movie, we're like, are you going to Thor to it? Are you just going to knock out? What kind of movie is it? That scene where Thor gets it's Thor, right? Gets his hand cut off. It's just a cop out, really. But I thought it was cool, but I already knew that the Easter egg for all the Phase 2 movies was going to be that Empire Strikes Back thing that they were putting into every movie, where in every movie they were going to try to fit in someone getting their hand cut off. So when it got cut off, I'm like, nah, it's not right. And then, of course, it wasn't. But I am a bigger fan of Ragnarok. That being said, everything that this movie ended with is completely irrelevant 5 minutes into Ragnarok.
Right.
Loki taking over. The whole thing with we were just talking about Natalie Portman, she gets annihilated from the franchise completely. So it's like,
yeah, so much wasted time, so much weight. And I don't know too much about. Do you guys know much about Alan Taylor as a director? I didn't really research him too much.
If I remember correctly, it's been a while, but I think this is the guy that he did some Game of Thrones episodes, and that's why they had him direct it.
Yeah, because Kenneth Branagh did the first one, so they were going that very Shakespearean route. Mm-hmm. And then Chris Hemsworth and everyone else on it didn't like it, and that's why they got Taika for the third one.
Yeah, total. And that's the thing with the Thor franchise; it's so disjointed as far as tonally. Because the first one, it was just straight up superhero movie. They're just gonna have an action adventure movie. This one went. I don't even know what the tone of this one was. It was like flirting with kind of a Guardians tone a little bit sometimes, and then a lot of times they tried to go darker, and then they just went full Guardians of the Galaxy, 1.5 with Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. So I just don't. This one was just an absolute mess, and when all else fails, put Loki in as a villain, right? It's just like, yeah. I love Tom Hiddleston. I love what he's done with the character, but it's almost become. It should just be called Loki, at this point, other than because he's just more riveting of a character.
They just tag team him in. They're like, "Hey, we're having trouble. Come in here," and they just comes in there for a little bit to try to do something. It's interesting because Alan Taylor himself came out and said it was the most miserable filming experience he's ever had, which is something you never want a director to say.
Right? He Josh Tranked it. He's just like, yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. You hear a lot of that behind the scenes with some of these directors, where they're just like, "I'll never work with this," or even some of the actors, like Natalie Portman said that she'll never do it again. Although lately, I heard that she's trying to get back into the franchise. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah, I heard that too. I heard that she was trying to get back into it as well. I think she's one of those, one of the people who just want some more money, but at the same time, her characters, I don't know. I think fans because there are really diehard Thor fans really like the trilogy. My aunt is a huge Thor fan. She loves all 3 Thor movies like a lot. So I think that the fans want some closure for her character, so they could bring her in just to kill her off or something like. I mean, whatever they want to do. Like I think that for Infinity War, if she had like just a small little cameo, because like what is it? I think it's in Age of Ultron. There's just like the one throwaway line of, things aren't working out. Like between Iron Man and Thor, they're like, things aren't really working out anymore. Like,
yeah, and Ragnarok, they're like, Jane dumped you, and he's like, no, it was mutual or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I'm been married for a million years, but I never get tired of seeing Chris Hemsworth without a shirt on. So that's a thing.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. that's what makes the biggest fans right there. Chris himself.
Yeah.
Right.
If I ever want to feel bad about myself, I just put on a Thor movie. All right. Well, that's Thor: The Dark World. Let's talk about a good one. We're going to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, directed by the Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe. Starring Chris Evans, ScarJo, Sebastian Stan, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Redford. Box office, it had a budget of $177 million. It made $714 million. Rotten Tomatoes at 89 with a Metacritic of 70. So here we go. And I remember right before, and we've talked about this on the last episode, I wasn't a big fan of Captain America, the First Avenger. I thought it was a bit boring. It was so montagey, and it just did. I mean, it had some good things. It had Red Skull in it, which I thought was great. And unfortunately, we'll probably never see Hugo Weaving in this role again. But so I wasn't super excited, especially coming off of Thor. I'm like, is Marvel, the MCU in general, kind of losing it a little bit? And then I watched Captain America, Winter Soldier, and it just blew my face off. This thing was absolutely incredible. It had some of the best Nick Fury things, some of the best Chris Evans things. It was absolutely fantastic. And I was worried. Not only was I worried just because I wasn't a huge fan of the first movie, but I was also a little bit worried because of the Russo brothers in general. They were known for comedy, and now they were in charge of this big kind of action franchise. So did you guys feel the same way? And what did you guys think about Captain America: Winter Soldier?
Fantastic movie. Did you guys watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah, well, I stuck with it until about halfway through the Ghost Rider season. I think that was season 4.
Okay. Yeah, because I know, like, for the people watching it hand in hand, so, like, what the events kind of like coincided, right? Because obviously the whole thing with Hydra and stuff. I think it's a really good movie. I think it has some of the best action set pieces. I don't adore it like a lot of people do. I know a lot of people think like this is the secret masterpiece that Marvel has, and I'm not gonna disagree. I think it's done very well because it's like this is where they started kind of like making them more into genre movies. Like this is clearly like an espionage thriller that they had going on right from the beginning all the way to the reveal of Hydra, and then like them having to hide out, Nick Fury being hidden since like then.
Yeah.
But, that was enjoyable. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
This is actually my favorite MCU movie, and because of that, because this is the first movie where they start making superhero movies into more than just superhero movies, and this is like what you said, this is a spy espionage film. I liked that Captain America is kind of on the run, and he's the enemy, he's target number one, and I loved all of that. I love the introduction of Crossbones, pre-Crossbones, but
God, talk about a character they threw away.
Right. Yeah. But the Winter Soldier, I love the storyline there. I love the two characters. I love Bucky and Steve Rogers. Like I love their interaction. I I think that this movie builds their relationship stronger than the first Avenger did.
Definitely.
Like I really do. I love this movie a lot, and it's this movie and Civil War are kind of like this is my favorite, and Civil War is just probably a hair beneath it as far as my favorite MCU films. And the Captain America trilogy, even though the first one's the weakest of it, the Captain America trilogy is the best trilogy, I think, out of all the MCU films.
Yeah, that's like playing with a cheat code, though, because I mean, Civil War is
Civil War is
but when we get to Phase 3, I'll argue this a little harder. But I will argue that I know that everybody says like it's Avengers 2.5, and which it very well may be, but I think that at its core, it is a Captain America movie at its core. Like it's still his story throughout it.
Yeah, I mean, for directors known for doing comedy and like kind of dry comedy at that, this had some of the best action sequences in any of the MCUs, and they were very practical. In the Triskelion, in the elevator scene, him just taking down all those people and then jumping out the window is so ridiculously amazing. The way it's shot, and then just all the helicarrier scenes, the Nick Fury, the siege on Nick Fury, that was incredible. And he's just
the siege on Nick Fury I have two big annoyances with this movie, despite the fact that's my favorite MCU movie. One being he uses that laser thing to cut himself out of the car into the ground.
Boy, I can't believe you're mentioning that. I used to make a huge deal, and I had to take that secret and like put it away because everyone was like, "What are you talking about? You're such a nitpicker. You were like the first person, right? Does he not cut a hole in the freaking cement?
Right, like deep. It's not like it was like a manhole there. Right. He like cut a hole into the ground and dropped into the sewer.
You know when you have like a connection right away? That was it right there.
But then they use that same tool a second time in the movie to cut themselves out of the car, which that one makes more sense.
That makes
another side.
Right.
This man went through like 8 feet of just concrete.
Right. Yeah. It's like, was that a lightsaber? Did it extend that long?
Well, he is
like a portal. He just went through a portal and like ended up somewhere else.
Yeah. And my other annoyance is they changed the physics on the shield. Because in the first Avenger, it was they shoot bullets at it and the bullets just drop to the ground. And in this one, he uses the shield to deflect bullets and take out people, which is fine. But it just was one of those random things. I was like, you made a whole scene dedicated to showing how this absorbs all energy, and then in this movie you're going to say it deflects it, but whatever, it's fine.
Yes, I do agree with you guys with the magic hole at the bottom. I just meant like just them going. It was just very brutal.
No, the car chase sequence and all that is awesome.
Yeah, it's dope.
Just that one moment at the end of it just made me.
How do we get him out? I cut a hole in the ground.
A Looney Tunes hole.
Pretty much.
Should have said Acme on his little device. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot more like it was a grounded. That was when I think we talked about this before, where that was when the Marvel movies were trying to still be grounded. It was like take that car scene and then now you watch Black Panther. This is moving along, and that was like watching a cartoon. That was like watching, it was just a CG fest. So I liked that they went so real, and I mean, there's a scene where Winter Soldier kicks a guy into a turbine on the plane or whatever. I mean, it was brutal. It didn't shy away from things. What did you guys think about the Winter Soldier as a character and how they handled him in general?
Good. I think they handle it better in Civil War, because in Civil War you really start. For me, in Civil War is when you really start going like. Captain America's like, yo, this is my friend. He's being brainwashed. And it's like, can you imagine yourself in that situation? I'm sure we all have that friend who keeps messing up and you have to like keep defending that guy.
Right.
He's making a mistake. You're like, no, you don't understand. He's a good guy. And everyone else looking at you like, no, he is not.
It's like, he's killing people. And you're like, no, but he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
And you don't know how to explain it. Yeah. So it's like, I like that dynamic in Civil War. And obviously here's where it begins, that whole, where he takes off or however it is that he takes off the mask in Winter Soldier. He just goes, Bucky.
Also an annoyance I have in every single movie that they do this in, because they do it in every movie, that there's a villain with a mask. Once you see his face, never wears the mask again. Like, I don't get it.
It's always
even in Star Wars, right?
Like, yeah, even in Star Wars, it's like, but in Star Wars, at least they wrote in some stuff for it to make sense. In this one, it's just like, hey, now that the audience knows I'm Bucky, we don't need to wear a mask ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, because actor, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
All right. Well, and I thought Robert Redford's character was pretty cool, and they even wrote like, Gary Shandling. He reaches over for that awkward, because he was Senator Stern, and he says "Hail Hydra." So
that part's awesome. I love that. I love that moment. I love the Falcon's introduced in this movie.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And he's great. I love the opening sequence with Captain America running around the Washington Monument, and or Falcon's jogging, and he just keeps lapping Falcon the whole time. Like, I love that sequence.
That's right.
I love the PTSD stuff with Falcon running like a group for guys with PTSD. I love all that. Mm-hmm. I love the part where he throws the dude off the roof and Falcon grabs him and brings him back up. Like, there's a lot of just really awesome stuff in this movie. And the action sequence with Rogers fighting Bucky with the knife and throwing it around, that's like my favorite action sequence in the entire MCU. I absolutely love that.
Forgot about that scene. Yeah,
that scene with when they're running, the one that you had mentioned. What I always thought it was like the coolest thing was that in every different country, depending on where they were screening it, they had a different sheet. So I thought that was the dopest thing, because they would like change it depending on like what that culture had. So obviously for us it was like stuff like Star Wars and stuff, but other countries had like different ones. I was like, I'm like, that's so cool to like change it for different people, and just the little Easter eggs like that. I think this was where they kind of showed Wakanda on the map. If it wasn't Wakanda, they had that Doctor Strange Easter egg.
There's a Doctor Strange Easter egg for sure. Actually, the funniest thing, when he says they're like on the roof and he says, we've been watching people like Bruce Banner and Stephen Strange. When he said Stephen Strange, I was watching the movie in the theaters with my girlfriend, and I just started punching her arm like crazy. I was like, Stephen Strange! He just said Stephen Strange! She was like, I heard him.
So that stuff I thought was really cool, because it's like even expanding it even more,
right?
For what would be Phase 3, but it also, this movie introduced one of my favorite characters, if I'm not mistaken. No, I am mistaken. Never mind. It's not this movie. I'm thinking Avengers 2. Avengers 2 reveals one of my favorite characters.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I hope it wasn't Quicksilver. Yeah, but it was just cool, because that was kind of the big connective tissue. I like when they have Hydra featured prominently, because Hydra is a lot of fun, and they kind of took it all away lately from the MCU, and they kind of did give it all to the TV shows, which it's just not, they should have kept it going a little bit more, and maybe, of course they'll probably bring it back a little bit with Red Skull, returning, hopefully, even if it is a different actor playing the role. But I like it when they connect them more. I like it when, even the Netflix series, when it's all connected a little bit more. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people like it, as standalones. But I think that Captain America: Winter Soldier is one of the movies out of the entire series that works so well as a standalone.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because like we said, the way that it deals with its genre. I mean, that's what I think are the best superhero movies, right? A lot of people love The Dark Knight, and I honestly think that The Dark Knight isn't just a superhero movie. It's a
crime movie.
Exactly. It's a crime movie. That's what makes it so good. Last year's Logan. It's practically a dystopian Western. It's like when you were able to add more to it, you're creating yourself a story, not just a rehash of a comic book movie, which isn't a bad thing, but I think it elevates it to another level when you start crafting it into a genre.
Agreed.
Yep. Absolutely.
Completely. Those are all my favorites. And I love crime movies, I love Westerns, and I love like spy espionage films. So that's why all three of those movies for me are really high on my list of superhero movies.
All right. So that's Captain America: Winter Soldier. You guys have anything else to add to that, or before we move on?
Best meme, I think, from a Marvel movie. To this day, I always introduce myself. My friend and I specifically always go, "Hail Hydra." We don't hug to this day. Literally last week when I saw her, that's what we still do to this day. Is Hail Hydra.
That's awesome. And I think they even reference it a little bit in the new Captain America storyline that's going on in the comic books, right? Where Captain America wound up being like a Hydra agent for a little bit. So at the end, Hail Hydra, So All right, Guardians of the Galaxy, directed by James Gunn, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Michael Rooker. Budget 232 mil, 773 mil box office, 91% on the tomato meter and 76% on the Metacritic. All right, MCU, it made a Star Wars movie, and this was one that is like completely obscure, totally, not on anyone's radar. Guardians of the Galaxy as a comic book, was not a very well-known property. There's a lot of other comics that I thought would have been made into movies, before a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, for shit's sake. And then they made it, and it turned out to be one of the most fantastic movies in the entire series. So props to James Gunn. He really, I think he was of course not the sole writer, but he wrote the movie as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. James Gunn is a writer first. He was he worked for Trauma, and he wrote Romeo and Juliet, which is like one of the biggest Trauma films. So he came from there. So he's a guy who came from a background of just obscurity. Trauma films are known for, kind of like so bad they're good. They have a very niche audience, like big cult following. Speaking of which, you're making a Trauma film right now. I don't know if anybody knows that. Little plug on myself. So James Gunn came from there. So for him to tackle Guardians of the Galaxy is just almost perfect. The most obscure characters within the MCU. Who would have thought that a movie with a talking raccoon and a tree as main characters could be so successful? But as soon as they had brilliant marketing, I loved the way this movie presented itself to just a general audience, because it made it fun, and it made it Star Wars, and it made it just like this big space, space opera. And I just remember watching trailers for it and thinking, if this movie succeeds, we're going to get awesome stuff from here on out, because I'm such a huge fan of comic books, and I hate origin stories now, because I just want to see you take this random storyline of a comic and turn that into a film. We know who these characters are. Let's just do that. Yeah. So with Guardians of the Galaxy, it was if they can pull this one off, then we can see movies like Civil War. We can see, the Infinity Gauntlet or Infinity War. We can see stuff like that because it can be done then. And same with Doctor Strange. I felt the same way about that too. But we'll get there when we get there.
And I mean, and you mentioned this before, Tony, this was the movie that shifted what the MCU became, because before that, right before this, we had Winter Soldier, which is one of the most dark, gritty, realistic crime, where they weren't doing this, color filtering and all this stuff. And then everything since Guardians, if Guardians didn't happen, I think Black Panther would have looked a lot different. So what do you think about the impact, Art, on the MCU, and your thoughts on Guardians?
No, same thing. When I sat down and I finished watching, I was like, you know what? I wasn't alive for the original Star Wars, but if this is how those kids felt watching those Star Wars movies, and damn, I'm not that big of a fan of Guardians 2. I feel like it takes all the same jokes that were super fresh in this one and kind of pummels them. We know you guys like Baby Groot. Here's 5-minute dancing of Baby Groot. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just, it didn't have what this one had, which was everything was fresh. It was oh, that's what this character is over here. Drax, he's so over the top, but he's not at all. He's just such a straight edge dude. And then the whole relationship between Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana, Rocket, Groot, the ending with Groot itself, right? The way that they build up that character all the way to that. How do you guys feel about the reveal that's Groot's son in the second movie?
Oh yeah,
that makes sense.
It just came out, right? It's you like Groot, he's dead.
Right. It makes sense, but it's why didn't you tell me this before going into it? I thought that was Groot. I thought I was spending time with Groot.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I agree with you on Guardians too. I don't think I didn't really care for it as much. I thought it was a fun movie, and I enjoyed watching it. But
and then it ends, and you're like, oh, I just saw a movie. But then I keep forgetting that it was part of Phase 3. I keep forgetting that it came out last year, and it's not a bad movie, right? It's not bad, but it's just I feel that.
I think that the strong stuff in Guardians 2 is just Rocket and what's his name? Why am I blanking?
Windu or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, like that story is the strong story. All the stuff with Star-Lord and on the planet with Kurt Russell and all that stuff, like, you can just toss it out. I don't care. Like, it's just here's a bunch of me talking for forever, but
for a long time. Yeah, but no, Guardians 1 I thought did a fantastic job with it, and I love, because I'm a guy who I like supporting the filmmakers. So seeing this man come from indies and him jump on that train that a lot of indie directors have been going from indies straight to these CGI massive blockbusters, and he was one of the few to like do it successfully. He didn't Josh Trank himself,
right?
So that I think is really good. I hope that, because he's done obviously both, and I really like how he brings his brother and like his mom and dad, and they're like all like playing characters. I think that's cool. Again, I like following the filmmakers. I hope he still continues. This is like off Marvel, but I hope he still continues to make his own stuff as well.
Me too, because his last movie, like Super, is one of my favorite movies, and I want to see something like that from James Gunn again. Right? I know that he produced the Belko Experiment like last year.
Yeah, exactly.
And I still haven't seen that movie, but it got like I think mixed reviews, but I want to see him direct something other than a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Because right now, just looking at his IMDb, the only thing he's got coming up is Guardians 3. It looks like
my man's got a blank check right now. Like,
right.
This is gonna be his third movie right here. He'll be able to make whatever he wants. Maybe what he wants to make is so crazy he needs to make all 3 movies.
He wants to make a Howard the Duck movie really bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, didn't he come out in Guardians? Like that's the first time where he appears.
Yeah. He was the Easter egg, I think. It wasn't that the post credit scene.
Yeah,
I remember everyone was like, so you know how you were like, oh, it's Stephen Strange. I was like, oh, it's Howard the Duck. Everyone in the audience was like, what the heck is this Donald Duck doing here? I'm like, y'all don't even know Howard, do you?
See, and I'm gonna be the outlier here, but and this is going into Phase 3, but I liked Guardians 2 a bit better. I know. I just heard a lot.
What'd you like about it?
I liked. I thought the villain in Guardians 2 was way more dynamic.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought Yondu. I mean, Kurt Russell as Ego the Living Planet was just so entertaining. I could watch 3 hours of just him talking. I thought he was great.
That's what good, because that's what the movie was.
And that was fine. That's why I liked it. But and I agree with you guys with the whole Baby Groot thing. Although they made it entertaining enough, it was kind of like having too much chocolate cake after a while, where you just got kind of sick of it.
Perfect way to put it.
Yeah, it was fun, and they could have, but I liked the dynamic a little bit more. They fleshed out the relationship between Nebula and Gamora a little bit better in the second movie. I thought the villain in Guardians 1 was trash. I thought he was horrible. He was just this the Kree guy. I don't even remember his name, but you could have taken him out of the movie and
Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah. You could have put anything else in there, and it would have been the same film or better with a better character.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that part. Like the villain, that's the weakest part of the first Guardians film. Is the villain. It's the villain's pointless, but you do get to see Josh Brolin as Thanos for the first time in this movie.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so like,
no, but he is a weak villain. My man died in a dance-off.
Yeah.
And again, this might be a little bit unpopular opinion, but I just think the ending was a little too cute. I thought it was like the dance off. I know that was a lot of, that's what people liked, and it was so goofy and whatever. But to me, I was just like, this is just a little bit too on the way of ridiculous, because although it was
can I stop you right there?
Yeah, go ahead.
A little too on the way of ridiculous. Doesn't Star-Lord turn into like a giant Pac-Man in the end of Guardians 2? Like, doesn't that happen at one point? Isn't that like a giant Pac-Man thing?
Yeah.
Like, can we just agree that these movies are ridiculous?
I get what he's saying though. When you have, what's the villain's name again from one?
Ronan
the Accuser.
The Accuser with that huge freaking mallet, right? I guess it's like you could just go out a different way.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. I felt the same way.
Like, it makes sense for Chris Pratt, right? Like, I've been following him since he was the annoying character, not only Parks and Rec, but all the movies where he always just played the annoying character.
Yeah.
So to see him in this is like, oh, I get it. That's his shtick. Like, he would It would be Chris Pratt who defeats someone with a dance off.
And just in the context of I mean, even though it is ridiculous and these movies are ridiculous and silly, they still are part of this overarching thing. So it's not like, oh, you have to be a little, stuffy and you're part of the Marvel world, so you got to be, a little bit more serious. No, and it had some great and again, yeah. I'm like you guys said about 2, this is not a bad film at all, and this is probably my second favorite film in the Phase 2 era. It was fantastic. It was groundbreaking. And let's talk about the cast real quick. Who would have thought that a movie, with like you said, Chris Pratt, who's just been the cast as the annoying friend, but Michael Rooker, Karen Gilliam, all these besides like Zoe Saldana, because she was in a bunch of stuff, but David Bautista,
and the two voice actors.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, yeah.
Like Bradley Cooper's was like, oh, that's it's good looking Bradley Cooper, and instead he's willing to go play the raccoon. I got that, but Vin Diesel taking the role and like taking it like it's a mantle, like his family depends on it, right? And then going in that studio. Have you guys seen like the 10-minute like montage of just him recording? That thing just plays in the back. This dude, I am Groot. I'm Groot. And he goes in there and he's like acting his heart out for 3 words.
Yeah, I love that. And Bradley Cooper is unrecognizable. Like the voice that he does for Rocket, you cannot hear Bradley Cooper in that. It's great. Because I was like, when he was casted, I was like, I don't know, I don't want to just picture Bradley Cooper every time he talks. But he does such a great job as a voice actor. Who would have known?
Yeah, he brings that. He talk about owning. He definitely owns Rocket, and especially in the second one where Rocket goes to like a really depressing,
just a very dark place. I love. That's why I love Rocket so much. I like him in the second one because he has to take care of a baby, and he has no friends at this point anymore, and it's.
He has to take care of his.
He's like a single father.
That's it. That's exactly what's going on. He lost his best friend. His best friend's dead. He's taking care of a little baby, and all of his companions. They just bickers with them all and hates his life, and it's sad. And I love it.
See, so you guys agree that Guardians 2 is the best MCU?
Yeah, you convinced us.
All right, got you on the train. Yeah, but. Oh yeah, it completely was the game changer. And this was kind of where, in my opinion, like MCU Phase 2 started, because it's not just where movies, where Disney says this is the last movie in this phase. This was an actual shift in everything, and I love what they've done after this, and I love the impact.
I would say that this is definitely a shift that spawned a lot of things, but I think that this shift didn't really take form until Phase 3. I think that when we go into the next movies, like Age of Ultron and Ant-Man, still have very much a Winter Soldier kind of like coloring and more grounded. Like they try to ground themselves a little bit more. When Phase 3 really kicks off, is I feel like when you get that Guardians influence across the board with all the coloring and stuff. But
yeah,
I get what you're saying. Definitely.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts on Guardians before we move on?
No.
All right. All right. Avengers: Age of Ultron, directed by Joss Whedon, with Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, ScarJo, Jeremy Renner, James Spader, Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen. I mean, this is just the people that were worth mentioning, and cameos by Samuel L. Jackson as well. He came out of the magical hole, like you guys so eloquently stated. This one cost $316 million to make, made $1.4 billion, and Rotten Tomatoes at 75, Metacritic at 66. So, Joss Whedon, everyone was still on that Avengers high. So this was the one where it was just like Avengers 2, it could do no wrong. It came out. There were some good things, and there was not so good things about Avengers Age of Ultron. Let's go. Art, what did you think about Age of Ultron?
You guys know who Kevin Sorbo is?
Yeah. He's Hercules.
Yeah, so you know that scene where he goes, disappointed? That was me for this movie right here, man. This was like, I know all my friends overseas got this movie and they were hyping it up. They were on the Marvel drug train. I was like, all right, let's go. Bro, like none of it It's so disconjointed, in my opinion. Then I hear Josh Whedon come out and cry like a baby about how they didn't care about. He was coming out like Tommy Wiseau in the Disaster Artist. My vision. You know, he was talking about how the ending, which I was like, okay, I thought it was cute. There was something about it, and then I realized what it was when I hear him talking about. So you know how it ends with like Captain America going Avengers, and then it cuts.
Yeah,
assemble, because he wanted to end it that way to be super quirky. And Josh Whedon was like, yeah, they were like ruining everything for me. They wanted to change stuff. So pretty much when it came to that scene, I wasn't going to have it. I wasn't going to have them switch it out in post-production. So there is no version where he ever says assemble. I would purposely like turn off the camera or make sure that he does something else. And there's a scene like where he goes, Avengers, he like made him not say anything. So I was like, and I realized, I was like, wow, you did not have a good time filming this movie. And for me, it showed. For me, it showed.
Oh, definitely.
So
no, it definitely shows. The random detour that Thor takes in the movie to go like jump in a lake. I don't understand it. It doesn't
so
make
ham-fisted.
Hey, he's shirtless, but you're right. It makes absolutely no sense.
That got me.
Yeah, makes no sense. James Spader, I feel like, was kind of wasted as Ultron. Like, I mean, I think his voice works, but it just didn't really give him enough to do. He's like kind of interesting right when he's born, and then he just becomes a giant robot that they have to fight, and he like kind of loses the like any kind of depth in the character. Which, I mean, Marvel's villains always kind of suck, so it's nothing really new there. But cool introductions, though. I mean, we do get Wanda and Quicksilver, but Quicksilver, he's not good.
God.
Like, I like Aaron Taylor Johnson a lot, but he's not good in this. Like, he's just can you give us this crappy accent for us this whole time, please? But no,
I was an orphan.
But this is also where MCU and like the Fox X-Men, you know, they had that you can't say mutants thing going on. So, which, you know, kind of sucked, but then they just started calling them enhanced. I do like the opening sequence where the Scarlet Witch touches Tony Stark and he has that vision of like, you know, what's to come and all the bodies on the ground and all that. Like, I love that because it's still coming into play with Infinity War. Yeah. So even though it was filled full of all this world building stuff that it made the movie, you know, took away from the movie. There's still some of the world building stuff that I'm looking forward to seeing in the upcoming films. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was such a disappointment. Avengers was so good. Age of Ultron was just
bro, they Walking Dead season 2 it. They go to a farm.
They do go to a farm. Yeah, because not only do they have to set up the events of Infinity War for some reason, but they also have to set up the events of Civil War. So they're like, hey, let's have an argument with you guys chopping wood. That'll set up the events of Civil War really well.
Oh my goodness. Now I'll say this. I said it introduces one of my favorite characters, who's not even a character because I don't care about her being a character. Linda Cardinelli. I have such a huge crush on since Freaks and Geeks. Oh, so when I see her come out in this movie, I was like, you know what? Maybe Hawkeye ain't that bad of a superhero if he's got Linda Cardinelli.
Right. But I mean, they set up this kind of romance between him and Black Widow. They set up a lot of weird romance. They try to ship Black Widow with a lot of people. Like, even in Winter Soldier, they got this like little close talking thing going on, and you thought that was going to turn into something, and now she's, I guess, maybe going to be with Hulk. It's kind of bizarre how they treated her character, because, you know, if you have a strong female character, you know.
Do you remember the controversy? Do you remember the controversy with Jeremy Renner, where he called her a slut?
And everyone,
he's like, I wasn't talking about Scarlett Johansson. I was just talking about the character. Like, he was like trying to defend himself for like months and months and months. He just kept getting interviewed about that one thing, and he was like, "Man," he's like, "I'm not taking it back." Like, he refused.
Right? Yeah, because it's not his fault. He's not the one who wrote the character to be that. Because you're 1,000% correct. She's flirting. They have her flirting with the Hulk. Then they have her flirting with Captain America. Then they have her, like you said, with Hawkeye. And they're like, "Oh no, she's actually just it's like brothers."
Yeah, and with Iron Man, like with Tony Stark in the first in Iron Man 2, that's like where her character was introduced.
So, well, she had a fucking arrow on a necklace when they introduced her in Iron Man 2, and she wore that same necklace, I think, for a couple of things. So it's like, oh, you know, it was like a promise ring kind of thing. You know, if we're dating in junior high, like, she had an arrow necklace, like she was with Hawkeye.
Right.
He's the Red Sparrow, man. It's all manipulation. That's what it is.
It was really bizarre, but going back to what you guys said about James Spader as Ultron, and I mean, Ultron's such a riveting villain, such a cool character in the comic books, and his inception was really cool. They handled it really well, and I think at the very end, when he's sitting there talking to Vision, I think that was pretty cool when he's just like having this like weird philosophical, these two AIs are having this weird philosophical like debate about everything before Vision takes him out. But yeah, talk about the introduction of another character, and that's Vision. That was one of my favorite characters in the Avengers. If you remember that arcade game, the Avengers one, you could be Vision and stuff. He was always my favorite character.
Vision's one of my favorite characters from the comic book. So seeing him come to life on the screen with Paul Bettany actually like playing him, I absolutely loved it. I love Paul Bettany a lot, and I love how they handle Vision so much in this movie, and then in future films as well. Like and even though in Infinity War they keep showing scenes of him without like him in a human form, it's because Paul Bettany absolutely hates being in makeup for 6 hours. But I love the way that it looks on screen. I really, really do.
Yeah, I thought he was an absolutely riveting character. I was kind of bummed that they went the classic style. I liked his like all white kind of ghost looking get up from the comic books, but I mean either way he did look pretty great. But this, yes, it was a disjointed mess. This thing was it was the Last Jedi of the MCU. Editing was.
I would disagree, but my stance on The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it's fine. The whole other show that we've already had.
We've already had that show. Go watch that show.
Yeah, scroll down. But yeah, it was just there was some important things. This spawned, like you said, the Civil War with the Wachovia. What happened in there? Thousands of people died in this movie. So it did go to kind of a dark place, but just the absolute waste of a character in Quicksilver. And it's going to be a little awkward now that all the X-Men characters are going to come over, and now you have
maybe
Quicksilver again.
The Fox deal hasn't completely went through yet, but it is like I forget, somebody else just threw their hat into the ring on the Fox deal. I forget who it is, but it's put kind of a little bit of a barrier up. So who knows if we'll actually get that. I don't really want that deal to go through. The only thing I just want them just to buy the Marvel characters. Like don't buy all of Fox. Just buy the X-Men. That's fine. But yeah, I fully agree. I freaking Quicksilver, like they kill him off, and which is fine because I didn't like his character anyway. But it made it like they should have killed off a main character. I feel like if they wanted to give it that weight that they were going for, I don't.
Not one that you just introduced.
Yeah, why kill off the character that you just introduced? Who could have, I mean, maybe they knew it too. Maybe they originally had written somebody else. They were like, you know what? He can't do this accent.
They didn't even give him a cool costume. They just put him in like a Nike tracksuit. I'm just like, man, they didn't even try with this character.
Like Danny Phantom.
Does he have like eyeshadow on too?
Yeah, you look really weird.
Horrible. Elizabeth Olsen. I mean, she put Olsen twins. What? She put the Olsens on the map. She's very. And it was a little awkward seeing. They were brother and sister in this, and then watch the Godzilla movie, and they're married.
Oh yeah, they're married.
Right. It's cool. Watch what is it? The movie with her and Josh Brolin.
That's even weirder.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie was just such a, like you guys said, just such a disappointment. It was another introduction of a character that I like quite a bit, and that was Claw, which we got to see in Black Panther. Anything with him is great, and I love him in that role. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, he will not be in that role any longer. But it was good that he got to be more prominently featured in Black Panther, because I love it. Andy Serkis, everything he does, he puts like 400%, into. So, there's just not a lot to say about this movie. This set up the tone for the shift in the MCU with that, Tony versus Cap.
The best thing about this movie is, in all honesty, I think it's the only MCU movie where they did so much world building that it hurt the movie. It's the only one I think that you can really say that about. So I think that this movie, it's a positive thing, if you want to put a little spin on it, that this happened with this movie, only because it woke up like the producers to go, hey, let's just let these filmmakers make their movies. You know, as you know, I mean, they get the final say on everything, but like, let's let these filmmakers make their movies and not try to force this open world upon it. But I think that this was also around the time the DCEU was starting to kick off, right, with Man of Steel and stuff. And like, so I think that they were maybe also just at a little bit of a scramble, like, hey, let's just show how big this world's going to be in this one movie, because we've got some competition brewing. So like, let's just do all this and fail miserably.
Do you guys think that
the movie made a ton of money?
Oh yeah. Do you guys think that this movie dragged Joss Whedon through the mud a little bit? Do you think he didn't come out as good as he would? Because before that, you know, Joss Whedon could kind of do no wrong. He had the cult following with Firefly and everything, and then the Avengers he killed it with. And then after this, I don't know. What do you guys think? Did it tarnish his name a little bit?
I think he got too used to the fact that he had his cult following and he thought he could do no wrong. That's my opinion. Because after this one, I have no doubt that he had problems with the producers and whatever else, because it's such a big movie. It's like the biggest movie you can possibly make out there.
Right.
But then he goes on all these other tangents. And recently with the whole thing, like he wanted to, the whole Justice League thing, and then he wanted to do Batgirl, and then he just recently left it and stuff. I feel like, because I followed him on Twitter, he's that guy who makes jokes. People don't like them, and he gets mad that you don't like them. You just brush it off.
Yeah. I think this movie, it tarnished Joss Whedon for me, because I was kind of one of those big Joss Whedon fans, and I still am a fan of his like writing. Cabin in the Woods is a awesome movie. Like he does good stuff, and I was actually excited when he was talking about doing a Batgirl movie. I was excited for his version of Batgirl. I thought it could be really cool, but he doesn't excite me, I guess, like it used to, because of this movie. I was just like, oh, I don't know. But I also, I guess, maybe, but I don't know. It's like he did the Avengers, like the first one, and it was amazing. And I can't help but think that how does a production company push around the guy that just made them, you know, billions of dollars off of a movie, and then turn around and push him around? I feel like maybe he's just a pushover, and like he could have stood up a little bit more for his vision.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I was on the fence the other way when they announced Batgirl and him attached to it. I not really wouldn't be excited to see a Batgirl movie, but then when they attached him to direct it too, I completely lost interest. So now I'm a little bit more interested that he's not involved. Because he just, I was like brown coat through and through with Firefly and Serenity and all that. His writing's so snappy and so fun with Cabin in the Woods and everything, and the first Avengers. But it's like I don't want to say he doesn't care anymore, but it's like he lost that drive a little bit, that passion. Like he worked so hard as this kind of smaller project person, then he kind of hit the pinnacle, and then now shit doesn't stink, and he just kind of, whatever he puts out, like, if you don't like it, it's your problem kind of thing, kind of like what Art said. But moving on to let's round it out with the last movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2. That is Ant-Man. That's directed by Peyton Reed. I put quotation marks Edgar Wright, because pretty much in it to the very end. Starring Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Corey Stoll, Michael Douglas. Budget of $142 million, made $519 million, 82 on Rotten Tomatoes and 64 on Metacritic. So this was, like you said, it felt still a little bit more grounded. I thought it was a little bit, it was pretty fantastical. Like the effects in this, it did go in those kind of, I was going to say big way, but not really. It made everything smaller, but it looked cool. This was, I appreciated this one, and not a lot of people. when you think about the MCU as a whole, Ant-Man isn't the one that jumps out. And when I did the Twitter poll, this one didn't get any votes for being their favorite one. It's not my favorite one of this phase, but I appreciate it for what it was. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, where this, to me, is one of the best standalone MCU films because it's a contained heist movie. The stakes aren't that big, no pun intended. But it had a decent villain with Yellow Jacket, and I thought Michael Douglas was fantastic. So, what did you guys think about Ant-Man?
I think this movie was very overhyped, and I loved the idea of an Ant-Man heist movie. I thought that's going to be awesome. I've been waiting for Ant-Man to be involved in this forever because I was a huge Ant-Man fan, from the comic books. Like, I'm a big fan of Hank Pym, and then they were doing the other one. But I've been waiting for Ant-Man to be introduced into it forever because he's one of the original Avengers, and for them to do a heist movie, I thought that would be a really awesome way to introduce this character. And then I think it was just overhyped for me. The whole movie takes place in Hank Pym's house. And it just drives me nuts. Like this whole movie, it was an origin story, which I don't really care for too much. Just because it's like, let's train you and let's just tell the audience 1,000 times why it's okay that you talk to ants. Like, we're just going to explain this to the point of people are going to be okay with it. And I felt like it was just trying to explain itself too hard for the majority of the film. But with all that said, I found the movie to be enjoyable. I thought it was funny. Paul Rudd is awesome as the character. Like, he's great. I love him in Civil War, and I'm excited for the new Ant-Man movie that's coming out later this year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, all the negative things that I just said doesn't mean it was a bad movie. I enjoy the film. I just thought it was overhyped, and I wish that it would have taken place not solely in Hank Pym's house for the majority of the movie. Yeah. Oh, and what's his name? Michael Pena? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He was funny in it.
Best part of the movie. He's hilarious. Love him.
I thought the effects on this one were better than some of them. I mean, arguably, I think the visuals in this movie were better than Black Panther.
I agree. There's nothing wrong with the visuals. I love all that, and I love the way the suit looks. All of it. It's just the overall story. I didn't feel like it was a heist movie. Like, it kept getting, it was marketed as a heist movie, but I didn't feel like, I love heist movies. It didn't give me that heist movie feel that, you get from like, what is it? The Bank Job or,
the Italian Job. We've talked about, we've argued.
Not the Italian Job, the Bank Job. But the Italian Job is awesome, which I love. You shut your mouth.
All right, Art. Which side of the fence do you fall on this? And you can't be Switzerland. Go.
I don't like this movie, man.
Oh!
See, I respect Edgar Wright to the fullest. So when that whole thing fell out, I was like, oh man. And then they still had him credited, obviously. So to me, and this is a big thing that I have with the Han Solo movie coming up.
Yeah.
The whole movie feels like someone trying to be Edgar Wright.
I agree fully. Because think about Baby Driver and the tone of that, and if that would have been this Ant-Man movie, would have been fantastic.
Right, just the idea of the fact that this probably could have been one of my favorite movies of that year if Edgar Wright would have done it with that amount of budget and with that character and with Paul Rudd, who I love. Yeah. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not that it's bad, it's just so disappointing because of what it could have been.
Yeah. I think that's like the letdown feeling that I had watching it. Maybe was just like, this could have been Edgar Wright the whole time.
I see a cut, an edit, the match cuts. I see a line being delivered, and I'm like, Edgar Wright would have cut it a couple more frames. Edgar Wright would have had the inflection a bit differently. I'm like,
Edgar Wright would have done some amazing transitions throughout this entire movie.
Yeah. I'm telling you, especially with the whole going from normal size to small, he would have done something insane. And what could have possibly been the line for Disney Marvel to be like, nope, that's a little too much. And they had conflicting creative differences. What could it possibly have been after seeing Guardians 2?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I definitely would have wanted to see this as what it was supposed to be. Exactly. The only thing, it was directed by what was his name, Peyton Reed. But the story and all the bones and all the outlines and everything, whatever Marvel Studios didn't change was Edgar Wright's,
Right.
stuff.
I think Edgar Wright's just credited with the first draft of the script. Like they had rewrites. I mean,
Yeah.
The overarching story is probably his, but and they probably just kept the weird stuff, like the giant, like Thomas the Train Engine thing. That was probably Edgar Wright.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely felt his fingerprints on it throughout, and then it was Marvel Studios movie, and that's kind of a problem. But it looks like, and that's kind of what we said about Black Panther too, where it was like it felt very Ryan Coogler at times, and then it felt like a cookie cutter Marvel movie at times, and maybe that's at that point. Ryan Coogler's a newer, younger, director, and that was his biggest thing. And Edgar Wright he's been around the block, and he at that point is just like, okay, I'm not gonna change like you guys want me to, and that's why he bounced. But yeah, I mean, it had some. It was, like I said, it was self-contained because you could put this on, and there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's the whole scene between him fighting Falcon at the Avengers camp, which felt a little ham-fisted into. It's like we got to put some connective tissue in there, so they kind of forced that in, but. It was a fun scene.
Yeah, I say that's actually probably my favorite part of the movie, even though I feel like it doesn't belong in the movie. Like they could easily take it out, but I really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about Ant-Man? Kind of, we had such a nice level thing going on of excitement, and then we hit Ant-Man. We're like, yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that is right. That is Marvel Phase 2. Road to Infinity. So I can't wait for Phase 3. Probably a little bit more excitement for that one. Phase 2 was kind of a, looking back, I definitely liked Phase 1 more. And my favorite movie of Phase 2 is Winter Soldier, and followed very closely by Guardians. But then there was some kind of duds. But for the most part, it was necessary. It was just kind of those group of movies that connected us from all the origin stories, and then now to being able to be more exciting, be bigger, have the wheels kind of come off a little bit in Phase 3. So it is what it is. What was your, the best one, in my opinion, like I said, was Winter Soldier. Worst one was probably Age of Ultron. No, Thor: The Dark World. So that was my favorite and my least favorite. Art, what was your most favorite of Phase 2 and your least favorite?
Guardians, and while Ant-Man was the most disappointing, Thor 2.
Yeah.
That's the one that I won't watch again.
Tony?
Yeah. Winter Soldier, definitely my favorite. As I said earlier, it's my favorite MCU movie, like as a whole. And then definitely Thor 2, definitely weakest.
Yeah. Oh man, that was nap-inducing, right, Art? That's
dude. Yeah.
I'm getting tired just thinking about it. It's all
right. All right, well, let's put that one to bed, so to speak. All right, so I want to thank my special guests, Mr. Arturo Zurita from the AtZ Show, and Let Me Explain. Thank you so much for coming on, and what are you up to? And tell everyone about your channel, and where can everyone find you?
Dope. Well, you can find me like on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that stuff. But you can find me on YouTube. My main channel is the AtZ Show. We talk about movies and stuff. I pretty much just like break them down when it comes to like complicated movies like Annihilation and stuff like that. And I do some music stuff as well over there too. But if you want to like follow me more consistently, I have a second channel, Let Me Explain. It's pretty much just like a movie video diary. I just break down all the commentary I would have as I'm watching the movie and just regurgitate it back to you. And some people like it. So you can catch me over there on that, the AtZ Show, on all social media.
Awesome. Yeah. The channel's fantastic. I think I found you through while we were doing, I was like ramping up for our, what was it, Cloverfield thing, Tony, and I ran across the AtZ Show and Let Me Explain. It is fantastic stuff. Great breakdowns, very snappy, and like the video you dropped today, was that rapper compared to Quentin Tarantino. I don't even know who that guy was, but I'm like, this is awesome. So really good stuff. Go check out those. My co-host, Mr. Tony Walters from Rad Entertainment. Hey, you got a little thing coming up called the Midwestern Action Fest, right? You want to tell everyone what you're up to and where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Rad Entertain on all social media stuff and youtube.com/Rad Entertainment for the YouTube channel. But we also, we have Midwest Action Fest coming up. Boom, there you go.
Boom.
Yeah, we got Midwest Action Fest coming up here soon, April 20th and 21st. It's an action adventure comedy film festival. We'll have stand-up comedians, tons of movies. I think there's some different VIP packages available. We'll have some t-shirts, and we got some pro wrestlers and stuff. So it'd be cool. Be a good time. That's pretty much all I got going right now. I'm trying to bring back the vlog, but that's that takes a lot more work. You can come check me out at my comic book store, Garage House Studios in Winamac, Indiana. I think I'm like 2 hours away from you, right? You're up in Chicago.
Yeah. That's why I was searching this up. I was like, yo, where is this? Where's this festival going on right here?
Yeah. You're in driving range, about 2.5 hours away for you.
Around there, yeah. That's dope. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And then every Monday night, right? If you're a Walking Dead fan, you got
every Monday night.
Dan Murphy.
Yeah, every Monday night, Spoiling Dads live at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch me hate on the show, and because I hate the show.
That's the best part. Absolutely. All right. Well, you can find me on the social medias on Twitter at OrzovDunn. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at John Dunning. You can find me usually every Monday night. We have our own Walking Dead show as well. Come watch it, please. No, that's it's called Dead Guys Talking. That's where DGT Live initially was. And now we're talking more movies and stuff like that. Also, coming up on Sunday night, I have another magic show coming up, another Hive Mind with Jason Alt from Brainstorm Brewery. So if you are into Magic Gathering, come check us out. We're doing a podcast about that, his origin story. He's an awesome dude. And we're going to be drinking a lot because he is a big drinker. So, yeah, Christian, hope you got something special lined up for that one because that one's going to be nice. But for my guests, Arturo Zurita, Tony Walters, I'm John Dunning. We will see you next time.
Bye.